Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this Inside the Americas. Coming up, the U.S. Republican Party in chaos after House Speaker Kevin McCarthy is voted out of the job by hardline members from his own side. We'll take a closer look at his arch rival that ousted him, Matt Gaetz. Also this week, former President Donald Trump was in court over the $250 million civil fraud trial against him, turning that appearance into an extension of his campaign trail. We'll break that and all the cases against him down for you with legal expert Eric Lisann. And you'll meet some of Brazil's 500,000 social media influencers. Some of the newest among them coming from Brazil's tech-friendly favelas, where 9 out of 10 inhabitants owns a phone. I'm Jeannie Godula. Well, let's start first with that extraordinary showdown this week at the U.S. House of Representatives. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy was voted out of the job Tuesday after 8 hard-right members of his own Republican Party stood against him. That is the first time in U.S. history a House Speaker has been voted out of office. The motion against him was just the latest political hand grenade thrown by McCarthy's arch-rival, Matt Gaetz. The hard-right Trump loyalist from Florida has not only sowed chaos within his own party, he also has a series of accusations of ethics violations against him. Brian Quinn takes a closer look at Gaetz, the self-proclaimed firebrand.
Kevin McCarthy won't be the Speaker of the House?
For Kevin McCarthy, he's a villain straight out of Hollywood, Florida, that is. Born near Miami, the son of a state senator, Matt Gaetz now represents a Republican stronghold congressional district on the Florida Panhandle. His heavily coiffed pompadour and tailored suits, natural extensions of a penchant for showmanship.
Mr. Speaker, my friend from Oklahoma says that my colleagues and I who don't support Kevin McCarthy would plunge the House and the country into chaos. Chaos is Speaker McCarthy.
A staunch loyalist of Donald Trump, upon taking office in 2017, Gaetz quickly fell in with the House Freedom Caucus, the U.S. Congress's most hardline, farthest right-wing faction. Though eloquent, his legislative record is thin, his combative style winning him few friends even among his own party.
This is a guy who's never built anything up. In 7 years around here, the sum total of his legislative accomplishments has been slowing down conservative progress and throwing stones at other members who are actually trying to get things done.
I'm afraid of $33 trillion in debt.
Gaetz insists his takedown of McCarthy was motivated by concerns over the U.S.'s mounting debt and McCarthy's fundamental untrustworthiness among Republican lawmakers. McCarthy, though, says it's personal after the former speaker refused to intervene in a Congressional Ethics Committee investigation of Gaetz over allegations of sexual misconduct with a minor, drug use, and misuse of campaign funds. Should that investigation result in findings of guilt, a number of House Republicans are reportedly planning a motion to expel Gaetz from Congress.
Also this week, former President Donald Trump and GOP frontrunner was in court for the opening of a civil fraud trial against him. Trump and his adult sons are accused of deceiving banks and insurers by overstating his wealth by as much as $3.6 billion. Trump was under no obligation to appear in court, but still seized the opportunity to create a media spectacle and get him back in the spotlight of the presidential campaign. Now, this isn't the only case against Trump at the moment, and we're going to break that all down now with former federal and state prosecutor Eric Lisann. Eric, thanks so much for taking the time to speak to us. There are so many different cases that Trump's involved in at the moment. What's the one to watch?
The case going on right now in New York State Civil Court, brought by the State Attorney General Letitia James, is a very interesting one and is obviously close to Trump's heart, so to speak, because it involves the legitimacy of his businesses and their ability to keep conducting business in New York, including such iconic properties as his own Trump Tower. In fact, the worst has already happened. And it's bad. It's just a question of how to execute that, meaning that Trump has been found to be a fraud already by the judge in that case on the existing evidence. And now it's just a question of how best to wind down and dissolve those businesses and determine how much damages in terms of money has to be paid over to the state. So that case is clearly bothering Trump because he's taking to media and to social media to attack the judge, to attack the judge's clerk, which resulted in a gag gag order being imposed upon him. He looks to be becoming unhinged, quite literally. He's there not necessarily because he has to be, because it's not a criminal case, but he did try to get out of another civil case claiming this was a conflict. That was a dispute with his former attorney, Michael Cohen. So to make good on that excuse, he's there, and he's clearly not enjoying it. That's the case that's going on right now. But the big criminal cases are yet to come. And in those cases, it's really his life that's going to be flashing before him if he's convicted. We have the March trial date in Washington, D.C. that's going to be coming up quite fast, which is the special counsel case brought by special counsel Jack Smith, which quite literally charges Trump with conspiring to defraud the United States government by inciting the events of January 6th, which have been labeled an insurrection. And at the same time, he's charged in a far-ranging conspiracy, what in U.S. legal jargon is called a RICO case, racketeer influenced corrupt organizations, in state court in Fulton County, Georgia. That's where Atlanta is, because of his interference with the election efforts going back to 2020 in Georgia. So those are the two big federal criminal cases, or one federal and one state criminal case, that are also looming in the future. And on top of that, there's another federal criminal case dealing with national security and his theft or illegal retention under what's called the Espionage Act of the most sensitive crown jewels of the U.S. intelligence community. And that is also set to go to trial next summer. So he has quite a full plate of legal problems.
He certainly does. And as you mentioned, there are some big dates coming up in March for the beginning of some of those trials. When might we actually see Trump in court, and how might justice play out? Do you think he could see jail time?
But he have no choice but to appear in court in each of the three pending criminal cases. And if he's convicted in any one of those cases, he will almost certainly go to jail. So he is facing very existential threats to his very liberty in the months coming up. It's going to be a very, very busy year for him.
Eric, thank you so much for that. Eric Lisann there speaking to me. Thank you very much. We'll wrap up now in Brazil, the second biggest user of social media in the world. Brazil has around 500,000 influencers. Now, that's more than the number of doctors, dentists, or lawyers there. And one emerging category among them is beginning to interest and intrigue big brands. That's influencers from the favelas, potential ambassadors for a growing market. This report by our correspondents.
From her favela in Rio, Blow helps her 280,000 followers with their daily lives. From finding cheap credit to be able to work like her, to promoting the water company's sewage system as the face of its campaign. Rafael Vicente advertises a famous brand of flip-flops worn by millions of Brazilians to his 3 million followers. Many live in poor neighborhoods whose image he wants to improve.
Dentro das comunidades há vida, talento, cor, conhecimento e humanidade.
These are neighborhoods long forgotten by major brands which have now realized their incredible economic potential. Last year, people living in favelas generated a GDP of nearly 40 billion euros. It's a new market which has its own salon, like this one here in Belo Horizonte. Hundreds of digital entrepreneurs from the region's favelas have come to connect with an audience who've sometimes never even heard of them.
So you only treat curly hair.
That's our core target.
It's a financial windfall that didn't escape Celso Ataíde, a renowned entrepreneur who grew up in these neighborhoods.
Big companies generally want to talk to big influencers who have 15 million or 20 million followers. But they're not going to use the kind of perfumes you like or the hair products you use.
He created Digital Favela, an influencer incubator that connects brands and young people like them.
For example, tell me what were your last two partnerships?
I was a moto taxi rider at the time, and I managed to interest Honda, which sells motorcycles.
We must demand historical reparation, but we must not only have this argument. If we live in a capitalist country, then we must use capitalism as a weapon that also belongs to us and no longer suffer from it. Otherwise, we will continue to complain that we're discriminated against and that only white people have the right to earn money.
It's a means to repair racial inequality by redistributing wealth. In Brazil, more than half the population is black, and the majority lives in favelas. Erica, who qualified as a lawyer, lost everything during the pandemic. Today, she's an influencer and chooses her partnerships.
When I was at public university, I had no money. Today, I'm doing my master's degree at this private school where I dreamed of studying, and I'm advertising it. I identify with what I see. If I see a person from the favela talking about a brand, I say to myself, if they talk about it and represent it, it must be good.
Are you going to trust it more?
Yes, it's the law of the market.
As a bridge between favela talent and brands, Celso and his idea have already toured the world at the Davos Economic Forum. Next year, he hopes to export his idea to France and the suburbs of Paris and Marseille.
That wraps it up for this Inside the Americas. Stay with us.
Follow our international journalists on France 24. Douglas Herbert, Angela Diffley, Robert Parsons, Philip Turle, and Armand Georgian. From the newsroom to the studio or live on air, they are on standby 24/7 to analyze world events. Whether tackling historic, geopolitical, economic, or environmental issues, our experts get to the heart of the biggest international news stories. They contribute to our special reports and scour the headlines for information. Follow it live. Follow the news. Follow France 24.
Liberté, égalité, actualité.